Yes, sir.
Again, just stressing the difference or the similarity between a servant and a slave. Because we've been made to believe a slave is engaged without their will.
Right. That's a slave.
Yeah. A servant is
He's voluntarily
voluntarily. Yeah.
submit his towards another's will.
Yeah.
Oh, you asking the difference?
I just feel
You see it now.
a little bit more about the difference or the similarity or why one needs to become one or the other.
Yeah. Well, I'll use my military experience, right? You know, born and raised in the hood, ghetto hood rat, survivor, welfare recipient, all that, product of systemic racism in America, family not raised in the church, right? So we were just victims. Dysfunctional home, right? So when I cried out to the creator of heaven and earth because I was in a dilemma, and he answered my cry and took care of the dilemma, right? So that inroad that he had in me, months later, he came to me and he said, I was getting into another dilemma, and he said, I want you out of nowhere. I was like, ain't nobody going to no military, right? Because, in high school and stuff like that, my mind was dead set against that and all that, right? And my family, we wasn't into that. Then he told me, because of the dilemma, I was open to receive. He said, I want you to go to the military. You go to the recruiting station, you test, and you go to the military. So I did it. Didn't tell nobody. I just went, took the bus, went, passed the test. I was the last. The place was crowded, right? It was packed. I was the last to finish my test. But I was the first one they came to excitedly and said I passed and qualified for the Air Force. Because it's in that ranking, Air Force, quality, Navy, Marines, Army, right? Based on your IQ, right? So going into the military now, right? I'm like, I'm there. I'm like, what the hell did I do? What I'm saying? We sleeping. Bang, get your, what I'm saying? They using profanities and whatever like that. You ain't nothing but this, that, and the other. I mean, break you down, right? Your identity, all that type of stuff. And I was like, well, I ain't trying to be here, right? But I couldn't. It's forced. It was forced. You see? So Yahweh enabled me. I submitted. So the 4 years was like slavery. It was forced subjugation, forced discipline. I had no choice. Otherwise, to be kicked out of the military is to be in a bad way in society. You can't get no job. You can't do that type of thing. So so I had to stay, and he enabled me. But when I got out, so that 4 years was slavery. I got out. I got an honorable discharge. Praise him, right? Then once I was out, then Yahweh told me. He said, "Look, I use that to make up for your upbringing, lack of direction, discipline, all that type of stuff. Now you understand, right? So that same submission that you were forced to submit to, now I'm asking you, will you voluntarily keep that for me and my kingdom?" Man, I understood it. I'm like, dang, okay. So I equated that, my military years, to now I can voluntarily submit to whatever he requires of me without me giving up or quitting. Because I tried to quit twice. I'm serious. So do you understand? But the word for slavery is one word, avad. Work subject to another's will, right? Working purposefully, directing energies to another's goal. But with kingdom, it's voluntary. Voluntary. Yeah. That's what Yahweh said. I'm requiring that of you. Will you? But the Gentiles, the word Baal is a word for master. It force subjugates you to their will. You don't have a choice. And I'm third generation descendant of slave, so we know it works. But now Yahweh is asking you to voluntarily continue that type of servant, slave position. And New Covenant, they say bond servant. It's the same word as the slave, but the bond servant is you voluntarily submit to another's will and direct all your energies towards serving that individual. You know, I'm a servant, I'm a slave. You know, those who are descendants of slaves don't like that word. But we modeled, we gave the good example of slave submits to, whatever the master wants from you. So, yeah. And that's what Yahweh requires of us. And in 1 Corinthians 9:27 says, but I discipline my body and bring it under subjection. That's the translation. But the Hebrew says, but I beat my body down and lead it as a slave. So that one, we understand. Dang. That's what he's requiring you to do to yourself first. And then, you know what I'm saying, I can become a slave to you. Ain't no issue. My confidence in being secure in my identity is never questioned by me serving you. I'm still who you see? I ain't got no issues. There's no insecurities in my identity. You know, I was working at a church in maintenance capacity, and after the military, right? So military make you a man. I've been through here, been traveling the world and all that, and so I'm a maintenance guy. So I'm at the church, and there was a problem, misunderstanding, and so I went to the guy who was in charge, boss man, and then he tried to threaten me with, we control your future. You know what I'm saying? And that made me mad. And I said, like, hold up. Then I spoke to him man to man, not as my boss. Dead in his eyes, and told him, I'm like, look, don't ever try and use, the scripture says that, Yahweh don't give us a spirit of fear. You're trying to use fear of you're controlling my future if I don't submit to a certain request. Don't do that. You do not meet my needs. Yahweh does. I'm here. I have no problem submitting and doing this and that, but don't challenge my being a man and let fear dictate a choice for me to make. Don't do that. Because if fear is my green light to attack it. So don't, and he backed off. And then I was respected the rest of the time. And then the other employees were like, what you do, man? I'm like, you got to do your own thing. Right? You can't piggyback off of my confrontation. You got to let them know, yo, that was my test. Am I going to put this job above my call of Yahweh on my life? Does this job meet my needs, or is it Yahweh meeting my needs? That's a real issue out there in the world with those who claim to be Christians. Who's meeting your needs? Don't deceive yourself. The heart is deceitfully wicked. Above all things, who can know it, you know? You working faithfully. You understand? And you say, but you praise Yahweh for it. But you don't have to live by faith, actually, because you're living by your 40 hours a week serving whatever that job requires. And then you expect to get that check every 2 weeks or every week. But that's a real issue, you know? And most believers, they don't trust in Yahweh. They trust in their skills, their labor that they give to this company, corporation, or individual. I exchanged my work skills for your money. That's me. That's not living by faith. That's a reality, harsh reality, I'm sorry. And you know it when you compromise Yahweh's principles and commands to keep that job. Just like we talked about how politics, they go in there sincere, but they get their desk, they got too much, the goodies are too good, and so then they compromise their morals to keep the position and those goodies coming. Bump that. Bump Satan. New generation, we're going to do it right in Yeshua's name. Shabbat Shalom.